Hi everyone, Kevin Mercurio here for Les Inspections Mercurio, and today I'd like to take a few minutes just to explain some elements and components that are part of an electric water heater to demystify any questions you guys may have about these appliances and how they work, and some maintenance tips. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing you want to do when inspecting an electric water heater before you touch anything is you want to inspect the electrical components. And when I say this, I say inspect with your eyes, not with your hands, okay? So there should be no loose or exposed wiring. The connections here on the tank, where the electrical connection enters the tank, there should be no wires sticking out of that box. Some tanks have the electrical connections on the top of the tank, so there should be no exposed conductors coming out of that tank. And again, I stress, do not touch the wires, just verify it visually. If there are exposed wires, call your plumber or electrician to fix that before you start servicing your tank. So the second thing you'll be wanting to check is your water supply pipes. And for this particular water heater, this is a 40-gallon electric water heater, we have our cold water line coming in here, and this is a copper pipe, and that is our shut-off valve that turns off the cold water flow into the tank, goes in the tank, gets heated by the heating elements, and then leaves the tank again through this insulated copper pipe to go supply the building or the unit in question. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make sure that those pipes are not leaking, corroded, in bad shape. If you have compression fittings on the pipe, you want to make sure they're tight enough if they're leaking. So that's just something to look into. So another thing that you can look into is inspecting the tank itself. Okay, so a lot of tanks have issues with rust, so make sure that there is no weakness on the tank. You want to inspect the tank all around it if you do have access to that. If you hear rumbling noises in your tank, this could indicate that you have sediments inside your tank. And one thing I always recommend is that annually you should flush the sediments from your tank. And this is as easy as hooking up a garden hose, and I'll show you what it looks like. At the bottom of your tank, you have an exhaust valve here, and you just hook up a garden hose to that exhaust. You open the valve at the bottom and you let about 5-6 gallons of water out. And if you haven't done this in a while, what's going to happen is it's going to drain some rust. It's going to come out with the hose at the same time, and it's going to prolong the life of your water heater. And this is especially important if you have hard water in your municipality or your building. So that's just one thing to do once a year if possible. Now I want to talk about the temperature and pressure relief valve on the tank here. And the reason this is called a temperature and pressure relief valve is because since the water heater is heating water to a very hot temperature, what this valve does as a safety feature is if ever the temperature of the water gets too hot or the pressure in the tank gets too high, well, this valve will open and it will exhaust the excess pressure or the water. Okay, and it's very important. We see a lot of these relief valves that don't have this plastic tubing, this extension pipe going all the way to the floor, and it's very important to have that installed, because if ever you're working on your water heater or your water heater is in an area that is publicly accessible and the relief valve does go off, well, there's a risk of injury because there's going to be scalding water coming out of this. So we want this extension pipe installed on the relief valve and leading all the way to the floor, preferably in a water heater pan directed to a floor drain. In this particular home, we're in a garage, so there's a catch basin, and it's a concrete slab, so it's not a finished floor, so that should be okay. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Lastly, what I want to make sure you guys are aware of and how to find is your water heater age, okay? And this is usually on the service ticket here, and I'll include a picture in the description of this video on how to find the age of your water heater. Sometimes if you're buying a new home, your insurance company is going to ask for that information, and there may be some other information that requires you to know if your water heater is rented or it belongs to the building. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Again, that's all I have for you today. Pretty basic stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section of this video, depending on which platform you're watching this video on. If you found this video useful, or you think that it may be useful to somebody else, I encourage you to share. Sometimes we're buying a new home or an old home and we're fixing it up or renovating, and it could be useful to somebody to know how to inspect the water heater. Thanks again for watching, and have a nice day.